Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there, and good morning at ya. I sound a little gruff today. I'm sorry about that. It reminds me of the funniest line in a story I saw yesterday. I think it was Ryan Dido writing in the Tribune Review about those idiot protesters at Pitt. You know, I think they got to figure out, do we want to do this or don't we? I mean, it's so absurd. You set up a camp, you make 1 million demands, and then you're gone in a blink of an eye after a few adults talk to you. Jeez, what a bunch of losers. Anyway, in the article talking about the initial attempt to disperse these self-righteous ignoramuses, Ryan was sort of delineating actions taken, that one person had been arrested and blah, 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 blah. And then he said one person on a megaphone. One person on a megaphone or something lost their voice. I swear. It was something that was like such an odd thing, first of all. There was something funny about somebody with a megaphone losing their voice. And then I thought, did he use the pronoun there because he managed to get this voiceless person with the megaphone to pantomime to him what their pronouns were? I mean, on so many levels, I just thought, what a bunch of... I'm so sick of it. I'm sick of them all. I really, 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 really am. And kudos to Mayor Gainey and County Exec Inamorado, who met with these, self-satisfied nitwits and got them to go away. I can't imagine. So, I mean, that's real stay in power for you. So, I'm sorry, I don't even want to talk about him. I wish media would stop covering him, and here I am. But when I said something about my voice, I remembered that line about a person with a megaphone lost their voice. First of all, I thought it was odd that was something that you would even note, except for the irony of it. I don't know. So, guys, oh dear. Got a cute email that I wanted to share because it tells such a funny story. And I asked the writer if I could share it, and she said yes. And it's written by Allison, who's somewhere in Ohio. And she wrote this about Jeff Goldblum. She said, I think the first time I saw him was in The Big Chill, which came out in 1983. It was the first movie, that my husband-to-be and I saw together. It was very memorable because after being seated in the theater, I turned to him to say something, just as he turned to me and attempted a kiss. The kiss didn't quite work out as planned, and his nose somehow went into my eye and came out with my contact lens dangling on its tip. He was quite embarrassed, no doubt, and I ran to the restroom to put it back in. Oh my God. When you think of that first kiss stuff and the and how fraught it can be. I know that we all have, I'm sure, stories that are just so embarrassing. You could die. But this, my God, hitting her eye and with his nose and coming out with her contact lens. I just love it. Anyway, she says, in later years, that movie was replayed a lot on television. I always thought of that and chuckled. Oh, so cute, cute story. And I thank you for, for sharing it. Oh, God. So, you know, I do want to say, and I'm being reminded again that um, it's a good idea to, and I hate this crap, but it's a good idea to subscribe to this show on YouTube. Good for me, and anything good for me is good for you. I'm going to do a Donald Trumpian kind of, yeah, thing. Oh, speaking of Trumpian like people, I am so sorry that I'm babbling today, but I can tell I am. Um, I was just really thrilled, a little disappointed because there was some chance he might not pull it off, but that this creep Modi in India, their Trumpian figure, although he's not as insane, and he's more adept, but he is a nationalist and a bigot and a grandstander and an authoritarian wannabe, and he's heading in that direction. And he just won a third term, but nowhere near the landslide that was anticipated, which shows pushback on the part of millions and millions and millions of Indians to where he's taking that country. And I was thrilled to see that. It's not something I talk about often, but he's one of the guys that just makes my skin crawl. I mean, he repeatedly during the course of the election referred to himself as sent by God. That's all you need to know, right? Anyone who would say that, run, run. Uh, and the thing is that he lost a lot of his support in the parliament. I'm not sure if that's what they call it, but it is a parliamentary form because now he's got to have seek coalition partners to form his government, and that's good because that puts him in the position of having to govern with people who are not the religious bigots that he is. He's just outrageous. Ugh. So there's that. And Mike, thanks for subscribing. That's good. The more subscribers we have, the better off life will be for us all. Oh God, I'm sorry. I'm sort of, yeah, coming apart. There's so many things that are upsetting to me. I want to just say this. I really think that where this country has gone wrong in a huge way is in becoming as besotted as we are with the culture of capitalism. Uh, I think it has distorted our values, our sort of human values. I think it has distorted our politics. It has definitely, as we know, widened the gap between those that have and them that apparently aren't worthy. It has set up this culture in which winning is everything and accumulating wealth is the greatest achievement. Uh, it truly, it used to be that the term value had, I think, a much more expansive meaning than it has to many Americans, people who have lived and come of age in this culture. Because value, so often to people in this country, um, means only one thing: money. Money. And of all the kinds of values that I can think of, that is so far down my personal list that it sort of overwhelms me when I think of the damage to our individual psyches, our national psyche, of having this love of money and accumulation of money being that which drives everything. And because the game of capitalism is ultimately a game of, well, monopoly, big fish eat little fish, right? And it wasn't supposed to be. I mean, there's these myths we tell ourselves about a marketplace. But it turns out that the marketplace becomes sort of a hellscape, becomes a killing ground where wonderful vendors, little vendors in the marketplace, are mowed over by the big boys, who are doing what big boys in this culture do, grabbing everything they can, trampling everybody in their path, and accumulating as much wealth and then power as they possibly can. And these are the people that now control so much. This is why when we look at the corruption of our Supreme Court, boils down a lot of it to money. Money. Those who have needing to protect that which they have and gain more. And more and more and more, the deck gets stacked. And so we live in this sort of perverted, to me, culture in which the idea of what is of value is elusive to most people. I mean, they can't even understand how somebody is valued. You can tell when somebody is asked, and what do you do? And we all know that there are correct answers to that, and there are answers that in some circles you hesitate to say because it's not a kind of job that carries what we think of as value. In other words, it ain't high paying. It doesn't have that kind of allure and class and bragging rights. I'm just so, and here's the thing about how Democrats have gone awry. Democrats used to be thought of as the party of the people, but Democrats were taken over by these capitalists as well, and with their values, and got in bed with, because that's the way the game gets played. And one of the reasons that I think a lot of the have-nots pull away from Democrats is because of how Democrats so often present ourselves. Highly educated. You know, we who really know what's going on, who look down on everybody else. And I have that tendency myself. But if you take a step back and look at it, look at us, I can see finding it repugnant, condescending, off-putting. And I've been thinking a lot about the liberals, the professional liberal Democrats I know, the ones with wealth, because they constitute such a large portion of the Democratic Party now. And I think you can lay at their feet a lot of the classism that we're seeing play out now. I think you can lay at their feet the white flight from cities, white flight from public schools in urban areas. And that's a kind of classism, right? That's saying my kid is going to have the best of the best, and thus will be a step ahead. And thus will, again, it's this capitalist competition. Everything becomes competition. And it's all based on what do you do? What do you make? Who do you marry? Who do you hang with? I hate it. I just hate it. I know that didn't necessarily, I mean, if I had time to sit and really think these feelings I have through, I might have come out with a more coherent rant. But I say that because I just keep, I went to had to take my dog to the vet the other day. And I have friends right now who have had to deal with vets a lot. And as anyone who has an animal now knows, that you cannot go to a veterinarian anymore, and get out of there without, you can never get out of there under $100, ever. Anybody ever get out of a veterinarian's office for under $100? No, invariably the simplest thing. I'm going in, need a few little vaccinations and maybe clip his nails. $240, right? And if you've had animals all your life, you know that this is something that's been growing and growing and growing. And I came upon one of the reasons why this has happened. Inflation has been, pretty bad. But veterinarian inflation is off the charts. Let me see if I can get a number here. In March of this year, okay, just a few months ago, the consumer price index for urban consumers was up 3.5% over last year. However, when you look at certain categories like veterinary services, that was up almost 3 times as much, almost 10%. What is happening? That, and invariably, again, if I say invariably one more time, because I'm hearing me say it, so I can't imagine how annoying it might be to you. I'm trying to think of a synonym. So when you note something like this huge spike in taking care of your pet, something has changed. And you know what it is? Capitalism. Yes, it's corporatization of pet healthcare. much as we saw it happen in our human healthcare system, where your kindly doctor went from making eye contact with you to being just a cog in a huge corporate machine, having to funnel you in and funnel you out in 5-minute increments on an assembly line, essentially, because the corporate types have taken over. It didn't result in better health care, God knows, but somebody's getting a lot richer, I'll tell you that. Well, that nice veterinarian that you maybe have gone to for years might look the same, but the odds are might have been taken over. And this is happening in dentists' practices, in veterinary practices, these, and sometimes they're hedge funds. They come in and buy these places up. You might not even know your dentist has been bought up. So they take the goodwill that the dentist has created with you, but then they take from your dentist the ability to manage the books. More and more of the people caring for your pets are working for big corporations. It's assumed now that about 30% of all veterinary practices in the United States are really, even if they appear to be otherwise, are under large corporate umbrellas. And if it's a kind of a specialty clinic, like an emergency clinic, that number goes to 75% corporate. And you see, they come in when there's money to be made. And Americans are spending more on their pets than they ever had. It's a $38 billion a year industry. And so it turns out that like Mars, the guys who make Snickers bars and Skittles and that stuff, guess what? Mars also is the largest owner of standalone veterinary clinics in the United States. Uh-huh. They operate more than 2,000 veterinary clinics in the US. So again, the hedge funds come in, the corporatized guys. We can't escape anymore. And none of it accrues to our interest. No pun intended. Another case in point. Let me find this here. I saw this in the WESA news roundup. They do a good job. Corporate, this is the headline, in case you missed it. Corporate buyers purchased more single-family homes in Allegheny County than ever before this year. What they're doing is they're non-local. These are big corporate entities, and they come into a city or a county. Let's keep it at the county level, into a county, and they now own so many single-family homes. They have nearly tripled their holdings in single-family homes in Allegheny County just in the last few years. These are capitalistic entities that get people to invest large sums of money, and they take that money and then they go into, well, Penn Hills, let's say. Penn Hills, where there are very affordable single-family homes. And they buy them. They buy them. Those are the kind of homes that have always been there for the little folks to make that step into home ownership. Homes that sell for 165,000, 200,000, 250,000 tops. That's what these corporations come in and buy. They're not buying the pricey homes in Squirrel Hill and Shadyside. They're buying up these mid-range homes. And you're seeing a lot of it in Penn Hills, in Bethel Park. And that means that homes that were there before for the little people to get a toehold into the American dream of home ownership, gone. This is a phenomenon happening all over the country, and studies are being done which shows that these large corporate landlords are more likely to evict people. They're more likely to charge more for rentals. And that's what they're doing. They're renting these places out, taking away that ability for somebody to start creating equity in home ownership, which is what for many people has become the greatest value, back to value that they have. Let's see. There are 130 municipalities, which is absurd, in Allegheny County. And these guys have bought things in 75 of them, so more than half. And they're concentrated mostly in the eastern parts of the county, in the city and the south suburban communities. And the studies done show that when a community's affordable housing market becomes part of just one other global network of financial sharks looking to build even bigger portfolios, it has no positive impact on the community. And our government is just clueless. I think they know, but I don't know. The executive director of the Turtle Creek Valley Council of Governments, which represents 20 municipalities in eastern Allegheny County, she says this: these corporate owners present a David versus Goliath challenge. And just tracking the web of ownership and subsidiaries is resource intensive for us, and many towns don't have the resources to do it. And she says local governments must work together to keep these big companies accountable and our residents safe. So they come in and they're vultures. That's one of the values of American capitalism. They're the same vultures who have been gobbling up struggling local newspapers and selling every stick of furniture in them. You know, it's enough to make you hate capitalism. And when capitalism is as unfettered as capitalism is in our country, and given the imprimatur of this capitalist crazed Supreme Court majority, we're in big trouble, I'm telling you. Speaking of that Supreme Court majority, I want to go to another big story, and that is about the Major League Baseball player who used to play here. Young guy, but he's out now, out for life, because he got caught gambling. When he was a Pirate, a Pittsburgh Pirate, he's gambling on games, and that's a no-no. It's only the second player ever to be banned, I guess, like this in baseball. The other being, of course, Pete Rose. Oh, and speaking of Pete Rose, I found this fascinating, to me, fact. When Pete Rose was facing expulsion for his gambling, the commissioner of Major League Baseball was a wonderful, erudite, unusual man to be holding that position because he was a scholar of Renaissance literature and the university president at Yale. You remember this guy, Giamatti, Bart Giamatti, and he uh, ends up as the baseball commissioner. And he's the commissioner when the Rose thing was nearing its end. And he's the one who came down on him and banned him from the game. And what I didn't know, two things. This took quite a toll on him. He died 8 days of a heart attack after knocking Pete Rose out of the game. You got to believe that has to be some stress related stuff going on there. But the other thing is that his son is the actor, Paul Giamatti. And I didn't know that. So the Major League Baseball commissioner, Yale president, and Renaissance lit scholar, his son is the famous actor Paul Giamatti, which is I just love those little factoids that catch you. Okay. Now, this I got from Aaron. Aaron, I'm going to go looking for it now. And I did not know of this, but it's on the same kind of subject that I've been wanting the kinds of things that just make me crazy. Efforts by our government to maybe help the little people who are caught in the maw of in the insatiable capitalist corporate culture. Why can't I find it? Damn. Aaron, I can't find it. Hang on. Hang on. Oh shit. Okay, I'm gonna try. There it is. Okay, sorry. Um, damn. I got it. So I had not heard of this, and I don't know why more isn't made of this. And this is the kind of thing where you think if people knew what the Biden Harris administration was doing for them, they say that, they only feel things are bad, things are horrible. And I didn't know this, but when the president and vice president were in Philly last week, was it last week? The vice president was touting the administration's efforts to address some of these issues caused by the greed of those that have. And one of the things she said that I had never heard of and wouldn't have if Aaron hadn't sent me this is that the Biden administration has instituted a new set of federal policies that make medical debt Medical debt, of course, something that now deprives people. People become homeless. Wonder where all those homeless people are coming from. Well, some of them just had an emergency surgery, and then because they didn't have insurance, couldn't pay the bill, and then the kind hospital, came gunning for them, and their medical debt took them under. Happens all the time. And so, you know what's illegal now? And did you know this? That when the folks that figure out your credit score, another wondrous kind of capitalist thing, they make us all into borrowers, and then we're rated on how well we're paying that money back with interest, of course. Medical debt can no longer be included on your credit score. So whatever credit score you have, there cannot be any part of that score that is derived from looking at any medical debt that the person holds. Now, my sense is that that's going to be huge for some people. And that speaks also to the corporatization of our healthcare. And when bean counters become the most important members of an industry as opposed to doctors in healthcare, the healthcare mission is lost, but the bean counter mission is ascendant. So this alone will take millions of Americans into a better credit score, in which they can then, I don't know, try to find a mortgage company will give them a mortgage so they can buy one of the few remaining affordable starter homes in your neighborhood that haven't been scarfed up by the folks who have everything else. You see how when you start looking at this stuff, how you can start becoming really very, very angry. So there's something I didn't know about. That's going to help a ton of people, expected to have a significant impact for many of the millions of Americans who have a total of $88 billion in medical debts. It is expected to impact 70% of the negative credit marks that currently exist based on medical debt. The three largest credit agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, will and have, starting July 1, will drop paid medical debt from credit reports. Yeah, I thought that was a good thing. But you know what? So much of what I see, it all comes back to these those that have never having enough. Another thing that I've sort of been sitting on and haven't found time to talk about, and this came from another, the news organ where I'm getting this news. So the news about the corporations coming in and buying up the single family homes all over the country, including here. That was from WESA. That's that is not a private. That's what passes for public media in this country. I mean, it shouldn't say pass, that it is. with next to no government support, unlike other countries. But that is WESA, ESA, the public station in Pittsburgh, one of them. And the thing I'm going to share with you now is from Public Source, which is another nonprofit local news organization, employs really good reporters, and they do marvelous work. And they rely on people like you to send them a few bucks, as does WESA. It's the only way they survive. And they did a piece a few months ago talking about how the remuneration for the big guys at CMU and at Pitt has just gone sky high. These guys and girls, I always think of guys as a non-gender, but the presidents and administrators at Pitt and other, this just focused on these two local institutions, but their salaries in the last decade have ballooned. I mean, so far beyond inflation. And that sort of, makes me puke enough. But at the same time, the folks that they employ, the faculty and the staff, have seen almost no rise in income. In fact, falling below the rising cost of living. So here again, everywhere you look, the big boys keep getting more and more and more, and the ones under them, because that's the way it works, it's a hierarchy, the ones under them struggle. I could give you figures, but who cares? The average salary for faculty at Pitt's main campus here fell 4% below inflation. At the same time, the chancellor's salary went up 24% above inflation. So the chancellor gets 24% above, the faculty falls 4% below the rate of inflation. Now, I don't know. And the thing is, these huge tuitions that these places demand. So you pay some huge amount of money for a kid to go, and then they are taught all too often by something called an adjunct professor, which is essentially somebody making, I don't know, what are adjuncts making these days? Minimum wage? I mean, I'm serious. Nothing. Next to nothing. That's how it works. That's how it works. I'm sorry. I find it so reprehensible. Okay, hang on a minute. I'm just here looking at all this stuff I have. So how did I go off track on the gambling thing? Oh, because I got off on Giamatti. I got to tell you, I mean, anybody who's listened to me for any amount of time knows I am so against gambling. I understand people like to do it. I don't. I remember getting in an argument with, oh God, what was his name? He later was the justice on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, if not the Chief Justice. What a nice guy he was. Bayer, right? He died too soon. Max Bayer. And this is way back in the 80s. He was just a judge, some little judge at the time here. And we met up at some church bingo for some reason in Oakland. I'm having this vague memory of this. And I remember talking to him about the fact that I just found it so odd that gambling, which to me would be, I mean, I think Jesus would find it objectionable. That it just seems like it's a sucker's bet. I understand it's also entertainment, but it's entertainment in hopes that you'll like score, right? Damn it! Stop it! Anyway, I remember him being sort of taken aback by my dissing church bingo in the basement of a church bingo. So I mentioned before the corruption at our Supreme Court. It was, as you know, the Supreme Court, which I pointed out, that opened the floodgates to sports gambling. And I mean, the speed with which this happened is, it's mind blowing. Because, you don't even have to have a good memory to remember when the idea of betting of the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball embracing betting, let alone buying into it in every conceivable way. And now we're shocked that athletes are being found to have succumbed to apparently this most human frailty, betting. And this schmo, who's now lost his ability to make a living doing something he was pretty good at if he was a pro, because he gambled. And we've already seen there's an NBA player who's out because of gambling. This is just the beginning, because this has been just since, when did the damn Supreme Court do what it did and say, why, you gotta let these people bet? And it was a Supreme Court case. I think it's from just like 5 years ago or something. Not sure. Oh, 2018. I found it here. So in May of 2018, the Supreme Court struck down a federal law that effectively banned sports betting outside of Nevada. And my God, the minute that decision came out, within a nanosecond, casinos are springing up all over the place, betting at racetracks. 37 states quickly said, I'm in, we're in. Used to be that the idea, and it was just known, that nobody was going to put a professional sports team in Las Vegas because of the taint of legalized gambling there, legal and shady gambling there. And now, how many teams does Las Vegas have? Just in a sense, this decision. Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys. They actually now own part of DraftKings, the major betting site. They own football teams and they own a betting site. What could go wrong? This is, again, unfettered capitalism. This is make as much money as you can. Like Kraft and Jones don't have much. But here's a chance to make even more. These leagues are now totally in bed with these huge gambling companies. And they're all drunk on the money that is pouring in. Now, there was an opinion piece today in, I'm not sure what, is it the, anyway, by a guy who is a sports agent and a very well-known sports agent, Lee Steinberg, and he I think is believed to be what the movie Jerry Maguire was, the person Jerry Maguire was based on. I mean, he's represented Patrick Mahomes, Troy Aikman, yada yada yada. So, and he says this is putting players under untenable pressure. And he says, I have represented professional athletes for 50 years, and I have never seen a situation that is more perilous to them and to the integrity of sports. And so it's just starting. You got what? Otani's translator stealing millions from him. There's other, it will just become, the sports page will become like, the police blotter. These guys will go down one by one by one by one, and or those close to them, people with inside information where money is to be made. I don't know. And players are already saying that they're suffering verbal abuse, like NBA players. They're being screamed at. You know how close the fans are, the bettors are to them as they're playing a game. They are being screamed at as the game is even in progress. Because people now are able, they bet on how many I don't know, 3-pointers will this player make in the first 20. It's endless. It's a sewer of possibilities. And these players are human. So the temptation for them to use inside information to make a bet or two is huge. But today, placing a bet's as easy as pulling out your phone. Anyway, anyone who couldn't have seen this coming is deaf, blind, and I mean willfully so. He ends his piece by saying, there's traditionally been, it's gone now, thanks to the Supreme Court, an impregnable wall between professional sports and the world of gambling. But that wall is not just crumbling, it's evaporating. And the leagues must acknowledge that athletes are human They have failings. They make missteps. And what these leagues have done is facilitated a situation that makes it all too easy for their players to falter, to be tempted, and to fall. And Lee Steinberg says that if more of the players do start to fall, they will not only lose their own professional abilities to do what they've worked so hard to do, they will bring down the edifice of professional sports itself because it cannot exist. The only reason you watch a game, right, is because the outcome is not known. That's what makes a game so incredibly exciting. And so, Major League Football and baseball and basketball depends on us knowing it's authentic and knowing that the games are fair and that each athlete is doing his or her maximum to win. And as more and more of these cases happen, and they will, more and more people will begin to doubt the outcomes of any of these contests. We'll see them as fixed or tainted. And you know what? That's the end of it. So, one of the greatest distractions and entertainments for most people has been placed in true jeopardy by this corrupted Supreme Court. And when you think of the loss of trust that is bedeviling this nation and its people, the loss of trust in our government, the loss of trust in the courts, the loss of trust in our educational institutions, and on and on and on. Much of that has been driven by the Republicans. Unbelievable. So there's all of that. Now, and just speaking I got one more little thing to throw in here and then I'll shut up. You know, when we see nonprofit, we still have this sense of, oh, well, that makes it good. And then as you grow older and wiser and sadder, you realize that, well, wait a minute, UPMC is a nonprofit? How is that even possible? How does that pass the laugh test, let alone the smell test? And some guy writing in American Affairs magazine, Jonathan Ireland, says, whoever came up with the term nonprofit, man, they were a marketing genius. Because the very term makes you think that the people who are running this must be amazingly trustworthy and not into being money grubbers like all those capitalists around us. And they're just driven by charitable concerns, nonprofit. And then he proceeds to tell us about all the nonprofits out there that are just fleecing people left and right. There's an organization in San Francisco called TODCO, Tenants and Owners Development Corp. And its mission is helping poor people afford housing. somebody bothered to look into it, and it turns out that over the last 20 years, Todco has produced no units of affordable housing whatsoever. In fact, it has spent millions lobbying against the construction of affordable housing units. You can't make that up. But they have nonprofit designation. Yeah. And I suppose people give them money, thinking they're going to help poor people find housing. And they turn around and ensure that they never will. God! The evil, the evil is just mind-blowing. So anyway, that's all the horror I can share with you today. And looking forward to tomorrow, a very different kind of a show, in that it's just going to be a conversation between me and Milton, who is a member of our audience. And he has been sending me interesting, wonderful information for years. Even during the show, he sends like stuff that really has helped the show, made me look better. He's something, and I consider him a friend, even though we only were in each other's company, physical company, once for about, I don't know, 15 minutes. But I'm so looking forward to actually having this conversation with him, and feel free to join in as well. So that'll be tomorrow, and in the interim, well, do what you got to do. That's all I can say. Don't have a clue what you're up to, but you do what you got to do. Be careful.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.